Welcome to the mobile home movement, where we showcase the beauty and affordability of mobile homes. Here we break false myths and share all the positive stories of how mobile home ownership transforms lives. I'm Franco Perez, and this is the Mobile Home Movement. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching. Today we have an amazing guest with us, one of the biggest movers in the manufactured housing space, Chris Nicely. Chris, thanks for being here with us today.
My pleasure, Franco. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, definitely wanted to kind of introduce who you are, but if you could just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do in the factory-built housing space and manufactured homes and all of that.
Sounds great. I've been in business for a little over 27 years, was VP of marketing for Clayton Homes, plus a couple of other positions while I was there, learning the business and learning the product, understanding the hurdles that we had to overcome and then trying to address those. So working within the industry and then taking a position as president CEO of Next Step, which is a nonprofit. So I got to then see the other side of the formula of taking the manufactured housing product to municipalities for infill, community development, and that type of thing. So now find myself with manufacturedhomes.com, which is a digital marketing company out of Irvine, California, but we work nationwide with hundreds of retailers and manufacturers, state associations, and that type of organization for business to business training, education. And then we have business to consumer communication on specific floor plans and help showcase the product to the consumer so they can be a better informed buyer when they go in to buy a home of their own.
Absolutely. And that's why I was so excited to have you here, is because we're both on the same alignment and mission of really just showcasing how beautiful this housing space is and how it can really help so many people. So what do you kind of see? How do you see manufactured housing changing and helping people in the future of housing in general?
Well, every product in the marketplace that serves any market is in a constant flux of evolution. Manufactured housing has not been spared that. The product has evolved since 1976, when it was deemed a HUD code product and termed manufactured housing. So the elements that are represented in manufactured housing today are nothing short of the same features that you can find in a site-built home or a housing complex of any sort. So the conversation is not about what you have to give up to be a homeowner with a manufactured home. It's about what your needs are, where you want to live, and then how manufactured housing can deliver the same product for much less for you as a home buyer. So that's really what the conversation is all about. And I don't see the industry doing anything different. It's going to continue to evolve with materials, with features for the home buyer. Clayton just announced, for example, a net zero house, and they want to have a whole series and maybe the entire product line net zero by 2030 or 2050. So that's very exciting. So we've seen huge advances in energy efficiency, materials used, design, features offered, and that evolution will continue.
I did want to touch on something, because especially in like my space, for example, where I'm particularly in mobile home parks, in that area. Can you talk a little bit about how we fight this battle of stigma and perspective around this space? Because like in your background there, you have, these homes are manufactured homes. However, most people see this as from like Hollywood as like trailer trash, that sort of
Sure.
And I think that's one big reason why we haven't really, why in politics or in even with customers, to wrap their head around that these aren't trailer trailer trash homes, and how it's really progressed so much since then. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I talked about product line before, and manufactured housing is no different, and community development is no different. We have a whole spectrum of products, from low end shade and shelter, which just keeps people warm, safe, and dry, all the way up to premium site built, almost quality type modular homes. But the sweet spot is in that middle ground. It's in the situation where you can deliver a high value, high quality home that will appreciate for that home buyer, allowing them to accumulate wealth for their family. A great example is right in your backyard in San Bernardino, where we work with NPHS, a nonprofit in the area, and we were putting manufactured homes into communities, into existing neighborhoods on land that the city had control over, and the land itself was not producing any tax income for the city, and the empty lot was an attraction for vagrancy and crime and all types of misconduct, I would say, in a neighborhood. So it was an interesting experience, because we not only went to the city of San Bernardino, talked to them about today's manufactured housing, but we talked with the neighbors, the potential neighbors of this home, and they saw what this could mean not only to their neighborhood in bringing new families into existing older neighborhoods, but creating some vibrance, some energy, some additional residents to their community that would also have a positive impact on the value of their property. So during the process, not only did we work with the housing and community development folks in San Bernardino, we went to the zoning, we went to the commission or the council, and we had a champion each one of those areas that allowed us to present our story. Ultimately, it went to the council for a public hearing. It was nice because one of the things we were able to do is we had potential neighbors to these homes come to the council meeting and ask for the council to grant permission for manufactured housing to be sited in their neighborhood, because they knew the positive impact it would have on their neighborhood. So it is not an easy process by any stretch of the imagination. As you said, stigma, stereotype is a hard thing to get through, but when you lead with the picture and the elevation of the product that you want to put on that site, and that complements the product and the housing around it, you have a better chance of getting advocates for what you want to do in bringing new vibrancy and energy to a neighborhood. And that's what we did in San Bernardino. This picture right here is a picture of development in Cincinnati, Ohio, that actually was about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, which has taken over a neighborhood in Cincinnati where an old plant was raised. And it's incredible the impact that that's had on that neighborhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And man, it gives me goosebumps hearing you talk about this, because we fight this battle so much. And
yeah.
And especially like where I came from, I came from a very unwealthy immigrant family. And, I talk a lot about how real estate kind of in the more recency has really only been benefit a lot of the wealthier upper class. Now, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is helping low-income families have more opportunity towards housing, and helping the middle class have more opportunities towards that American dream, which I feel like in many areas, for some people, that dream is very unattainable. Do you have anything to say on kind of how this is helping create more and more opportunities of ownership and more opportunities of getting out of renting that whole rent cycle?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, and we have demographics that are pushing the housing envelope, quite frankly, in this country. We have a huge millennial tsunami coming at the housing marketplace, new family formation, having babies, creating that. They don't want to live in the apartment complexes for 10 years or greater. Millennials have been telling us, no, we have the desire for home ownership. We just don't have it now. That was a decade ago. Now, family formation, babies coming into the picture, marriage, that's all changed. So now we have this tsunami of demand from millennials. And then we have the next generations that are coming up, and they're looking at this look and saying, will I ever, and this is what you were hinting to, will I ever be in a position where I can afford a home, especially in the West Coast? And the challenge is that builders are focused on higher priced, higher profit homes within specific geographic areas. And the challenge is a couple of decades ago, we had 40% of our building permits for site builders going towards first-time home buyers, entry-level housing. In 2018, I believe the statistic was, we only had 7% of the building permits focused on entry-level housing. And why is that? Well, there is that growing upper middle class and wealthy that are having an increased demand for a higher priced house with bigger features, more square footage on a piece of land that will appreciate. And the entry level product has been overlooked for a lot of regions. It's the same amount of work as a higher priced home and a higher gross profit, but it didn't address the needs of the builders focused on increasing the bottom line. So the challenge is that we need to introduce them to manufactured factory built housing as a viable alternative. The design has changed. The elevations have changed. The amenities have changed. The materials are the same materials that site builders use, that when repairs are needed down the way, because we know we have to maintain our home, when the repairs are needed, they're materials that can be sourced at Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards and all those. And that's the big change. And we have to open people's eyes to the potential of manufactured housing and the work that's been done over the last 2 decades in bringing these houses into a realistic current housing situation to address affordable housing. So that in itself, the demand is there. The product is there. We've got to break down these barriers based on assumptions of product that was built 50 years ago. Absolutely. And that's an ongoing challenge you're doing here, a challenge that I do every day, a challenge that every local builder that wants to provide affordable, attainable housing has to do.
Yeah. And I love how you describe that so well, because out here in the Silicon Valley, housing, it's either you're renting at $3,500 a month or you have to buy something at 1.4 and up, right? And people are moving out of the area, the important people, the teachers, the blue collar workers, because they just ran out of options to live out here, right? And ownership is such a key element to people's personal lives. And the whole idea for us has been really around these mobile home parks and mobile home communities to be able to touch on getting a lot of the home ownership benefits, like you mentioned, appreciation, tax write-offs, these things, and paying a lot less on the rent side of things. Right. I love that you touched on lifestyle as well, because for these millennials, these apartment high rises that they keep building out here are one, causing the builders and the building owners themselves to really benefit, but they're not able to accumulate wealth through ownership, right? And that's where there's so many of these mobile home parks where you can get that ownership and the whole lifestyle in these parks. You'll be amazed. I mean, actually, you wouldn't be amazed, but so many people would be amazed to see that it's luxurious. Like these communities are beautiful. You can have your kids play around. There's swimming pools, there's gyms, there's saunas, and the location of it is so important as well. So being able to afford in a very expensive area and not pay a high amount of rent and be able to grow from there.
Well, and that's an interesting area that you bring up is land lease communities, homes that are owned by their resident also appreciate, even though the land below it is not owned by that homeowner. So we've seen studies recently that the appreciation value of a home only type of situation in a land lease community is also the potential for increasing familial wealth. So that's a very important, and as residents, as supporters of this product, and the affordable housing solution in this country, when we see a manufactured housing community, it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable from the city that may not understand what it represents fully. It's vulnerable to developers. And what happens is those residents become vulnerable. And when someone comes in and develops that piece of land that could be very valuable, what happens to those residents? Those residents are displaced. And like you mentioned, I might be working at a hotel or in a production facility or a packaging facility, and I have to drive an hour and a half on the West Coast to get to my job. That's not going to allow me to collect and assemble family wealth. And we have to protect communities, land lease communities and others, co-ops, ROCs, resident-owned communities, and those type of things. And as residents, when we see those communities threatened, we have to get involved to help protect the residents of those communities and get an investor to invest in those communities, like you said, in a lifestyle type of environment that the people deserve. So you're absolutely right.
100%. And we've seen people transition. We've helped so many people and see them turn over so fast from getting out of renting and getting themselves in a position to now they have equity, and now they are in a wealth position to be able to attain that $1 million home or wherever it is that they want to
Yep.
go to invest. And
Exactly.
I think sometimes we always chase the dream of, once I'm at a point, I'll be able to afford it. And that's the only way, instead of taking progressive steps towards that as well. And we need those smaller steps
Yep.
to progress there.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to take baby steps to get to the destination we want.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
Where do you see factory built housing? I know it's in about 5 years or 10 years. Do you see anything that you see that's changing drastically? From your perspective, everyone in the industry. Where do you see change happening?
Well, I see continued energy efficiency. There's no question about that. There will be pressure on housing in general, and manufactured housing has always been one of the first to embrace any kind of improvements that they can pass along to their buyer and homeowner. So you're going to see it in energy. You're going to see it in design. You're going to see it in siting. In other words, how a home is located on a piece of property and where that property sits. So we'll continue to see development and creative engineering along those lines to make it more efficient, to make it less costly, all those type of things. I think you're going to see, we won't see, but we will experience the actions being taken by the manufacturers and others and the materials manufacturers in developing new products that will address old issues and bring them to market at less costly ways to do it. Raising a roof, for example, from a 312 to a 512. How do I do that more efficiently? What's the process? How can I do it without a crane? How can I do all these things and make it more affordable for my home buyer, which ultimately all the costs get passed on to the home buyer. So we're going to start seeing a lot more of that from the manufacturing and product side. From a market side, what we're going to see is an increased interest by developers, residential developers, detached single family residential developers in subdivisions. I expect we will see increasing pressure on municipalities and political figures on affordable housing within our city limits. So they have to address affordable housing in some manner as the industry presents more elevations that fit into every neighborhood, multi-story, and that type of product. We're going to see more interest from communities, from neighborhood municipalities that have control on empty lots that are not producing anything for anybody, not producing it for the neighborhood, not producing it for the neighbor, and not producing it for the city, and in fact attracting crime and blight in that neighborhood, and that's got to go. So why not transition? So I think we'll see more interest and excitement about the manufactured housing product by the municipalities because of many reasons, but affordable housing is something that they will have to address. The municipal politicians will have to address, because the constituents that they work for will demand it. So I see a lot of movement, especially in markets like the West Coast. I see a lot of movement towards that type of environment. And in the next 5-10 years, I think we'll see tremendous growth in the product. I think we'll as a society be forced finally to consider alternative home building products, and that's where manufactured modular housing, factory built housing in general, will be a part of the solution.
Exactly. And then last few questions here, but we talked a lot about the millennial market. Where do you feel our industry has to be to really kind of help educate the millennials and help assist them to be able to grow in this industry, right? Because I think the way that it's been ran previously has been very old school and towards that boomer market, and we're seeing a decline in that. But now more younger and younger generations going into the space.
Yep.
Where do you see we have to adapt to be able to make that difference?
Yeah, I think number one, we have to start talking about housing, affordability of housing, and how you how you gain housing security at as young of an age as possible. So do we start in middle school? Do we start in high school? The answer to all of that is yes, we do. So in some form or fashion, we have to infuse housing as a part of our economics discussion, our home ec discussion, our family living environment discussion in our schools. And if not in our schools, certainly on our digital media. We have to put our messaging in context that will be well received by our target market. And in doing that, we will hopefully provide tools for self-education, self-awareness, open the door, so to speak, to this new housing potential, especially people that have been brought up in the city environment, in an urban environment, may not even have an idea about manufactured housing and what it can offer, modular housing, what it can offer, or even home ownership. Yeah. This generational renter, the next generation renter, his parents, their parents were renters. They feel that their only destination is to be renters. Well, we need to break that stigma and stereotype. Talk about stigma and stereotype. That understanding has got to be embraced by the younger, newer market, that in fact the American dream is possible, and you can realize a home ownership and gain family wealth and that type of stuff. So I think we've got to talk. A guy my age is going to have difficulty talking with younger generations unless I take the message that I want them to hear and I package it in a way through other millennials, through other Gen Xers, and talk to that marketplace in the language that they're accustomed, through the channels that they're accustomed of getting their information from. So it cannot be ever business as usual, never. So if anybody thinks it is business as usual, they are temporarily in the scene, and they will lose market share, they will lose sales, and they will not make it long term. Only those that adapt and innovate to changing conditions will be able to stay abreast of the market needs, the market demands. And that means square footage, that means amenities, features. Owning a home, it doesn't have to be 3,200 square feet or 2,500 square feet or 1,800 square feet. There's a lot of workforce housing from 1920s and 30s that were 600, 800 900 square feet, and families were raised in those homes as well. So we need to start looking around, opening up our mind and what's acceptable to us as well. Housing security is the answer.
Love that so much, man. It's been so awesome having you here. Is there anything that you feel you wish more people would be aware of around your space, or any message that we can share for you?
Just don't be satisfied with status quo. Number one, don't be satisfied. Don't take somebody's word saying, "Oh, you'll never be a homeowner." I was going to say something there, probably shouldn't, but that's impossible for anybody to say to anybody else. You can achieve whatever it is you set your mind to, understanding the steps. And like you said earlier, sometimes it's baby steps to get to the end result that you want. And you have to understand the ground under you as you take that hike. And if you understand the terrain, understand what's required, and have the discipline and willingness to adapt, then you will adapt. And I'd say the same thing to the industry. Guys, what you're making today is not going to be sellable 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Continue to change, continue to evolve, pass value on to your end home buyer, and this product, factory built, will be a major part of the housing scene in this country, as it is in other countries worldwide.
Absolutely. Well, definitely we're cut on time, and thanks so much. I wish we could chat for hours. And but thanks. And then you have it, Chris Nicely. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the Mobile Home Movement. Join us each Wednesday at 10 a.m. PST for new episodes. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and we love those 5-star ratings.